Hello, we are live. Hello to all 7 people so far in the chat. So hopefully that's going to get higher. Hopefully we're going to get more people in here. We are streaming across YouTube, Twitch, and for the first time ever, Facebook, because I actually did it right for once. And we'll see if anyone actually joins in from there. Hi, Mom. I actually did it right for once. Oh, and we've got echo. From there. Hi, Mom. I got to hear the hi, Mom twice. All right, that's because I had YouTube open so I could see how many followers we had. So anyways, with all the boring stuff out of the way, let's talk to Mr. I never get this right. David Campbell. I was trying to figure out which way my hands were going. David Campbell. So David,
Yeah.
how long you been out?
About 7 weeks.
About 7 weeks.
Yeah.
I put a super quick bio in the description, but do you want to run people down really quickly on your story?
Yeah. So in January 2018, I was arrested at counter protest to an alt-right event. They were having like some sort of like soiree, you know, swanky dinner, slap rave. I don't know. It was strange, but it was fashy, and
as they're off to do.
Yeah, right. It was like, you know, right out of the playbook, but it was the sort of thing that was worth protesting, in my mind and in a lot of other people's minds. So we went out. It was an extremely boring protest. It wasn't black bloc, but like it was very boring. And all night people were like, "Yo, let's leave, like get a drink," and I was like, "Yeah, just a bit." And I never did. And then there were maybe 4 or 5 people, like alt-right dudes, leaving the event around 10:20 in the evening, late at night. We were getting ready to leave. We were going to swing back by the entrance and see if we knew anyone down there, my friend and I. And we came around the corner. There were a group of other folks in black bloc there. There were a group of drunk alt-right dudes leaving the party, and it just kind of popped off, turned into a brawl. During the course of the brawl, one guy got knocked over, an alt-right guy knocked over. He was really drunk. He hit the ground really hard. People went over and started kicking and stomping him as soon as he hit the ground. I ran over and gave him 2 quick kicks, and that's what they got me on. So, yeah, I know they gave me 18 months for kicking the guy twice while he was on the ground. I mean, I shouldn't have done it. I think it's like not a great look, but it wasn't really something I thought about. And I don't think that, you know, in most scenarios you'd sentence somebody to 18 months for, you know, it's not like he wasn't in, I didn't send him to the hospital, but I was the only person who got arrested. So to back up a little, after that happened, a cop charged into the scene. There were no cops there when the brawl kind of broke out, and a cop came in the corner, and I was the closest person to him. So he didn't say anything. He threw an arm around me. He threw me to the ground. When he did that, he broke my leg in 2 places. And then to kind of justify the fact that he had broken my leg and just kind of snatched me out of the crowd, he concocted this crazy narrative that I had stalked the guy up the street, that I had put him in a chokehold. I mean, I don't really even like to repeat this stuff because it's nonsense, but you know, I think it's important to confront it head on, because this stuff was ferreted out by the New York Post, the Epic Times, whatever that is. I don't know. Right-wing rags like went crazy. You know, the right-wing like goons that were holding this event, you know, were all over it on Twitter, and I just became this like huge issue. You know, like Antifa terrorists. You know, I mean, within a few months, the right-wing Twitter bots that were retweeting that I had like tried to murder a 16-year-old girl in Vermont and had not paid my taxes in years, and like stiffed my employees, and like I don't even have employees. Like I've never even been to Vermont. So like it was just like it became this crazy like problem for right-wing Twitter sphere like people. So yeah, but so that narrative was all disproved once we got surveillance camera footage. But the problem with that was that it showed a group of 3 or more people engaging in a fight, which in New York state law since the 90s, when they really started to, you know, clean up the city, crack down on you know, street violence or whatever, it means that you're a gang, and it means that there's a 3.5-year mandatory minimum, and it's almost impossible to beat. A gang assault charge in New York state is like, once they bring it, you're done. You know, you're either going to plead out to that, or you're going to plead out to something like lesser to mitigate your damages. So I fought my case for almost 2 years, and finally I took a non-cooperating plea deal to serve 18 months locally in New York City. That means on Rikers Island. Instead of going upstate into the prison system where I could be very far from the city, I would have a couple of years of parole at least afterwards. All the CEOs upstate are kind of rednecks and very likely very Trumpy, whereas it's not the case in Rikers. So there were a lot of reasons that I took this plea, but it was a non-cooperating plea. You know, I didn't have to talk about anything I didn't want to talk about. And yeah, I went to Rikers. I did my time. I did 12 months out of 18. And I came home about a month and a half ago. So here I am.
Well, first of all, we're glad to have you back.
Thanks.
But yeah, that's always gotten me, these pleas where you're saying I'm not guilty, but I just don't want to risk something even worse. Like, how does that, as like a normal functioning part of a legal system, seem okay? You know, like,
I don't know, dude.
we have people out there who didn't do stuff, but they're willing, but they know they have to do punishment for something they didn't do.
I know, it's strange, and I hear people talk about like we have a trial-based system, but I mean, statistically, I think nationally it's 95% of cases are resolved via pleas.
Yeah.
For like felony pleas in New York, I think it's 97%. The feds, forget about it. You're caught up in the federal system. It's like a 99% plea rate. So I mean, anything that 99, 97, 95% of the time doesn't happen cannot really functionally be said to happen, right? Like we don't have a trial-based system. We have a system. So.
We have a plea-based system.
Yeah, that's the currency. So,
a couple of people in the chat were saying you sound a little bit, just a hair low. I don't know if you can turn up the volume on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Let me scoot a little closer, and maybe
that'll do as well.
Turn up the volume as well. I don't like that closet door in the back. It's like not pretty. Yeah.
That's way less pretty. I think I'm alone now. Oh my gosh, folks, you have to talk to me now. I think he must have unplugged something, kicked a cord when he knocked himself out. He didn't knock himself out, I hope. Anyways, now you're stuck with me. Hi, folks. I have not been to prison for Antifa related activities. I haven't been to prison, so that's a good thing for me. But hopefully we'll have our friend back. Let's see what's going on in the chat right now real quick. I'm not sure what this he is. First of all, he's not someone who tried to murder someone in Vermont. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. I don't know if that was someone you heard about or what, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Oh, we got David back. That's good, because I don't want to talk about that. That's weird. Hey, got you back.
Yeah, sorry that I tried to fix my microphone and just left. So
well, the microphone is the heart of the computer, if you don't know.
I'll try and speak a little more loudly and clearly, and I think that's like the simplest solution.
I think it was just a hair, because you sound fine to me. So
all right, cool.
Yeah. The local gang. Someone was, just to make sure you're not the person that tried to murder a 14-year-old girl in Vermont, right? Because that's what someone in the chat is.
I'm not. No.
I was just explaining that.
Vermont. Yeah. See, this is why I don't like to repeat this shit. But it's like.
Yeah.
No, I mean that was like a Twitter bot having a meltdown. A few months after my arrest, and it was just kind of like the detritus of all the like.
Oh, so that was something that came.
It was on the internet.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh geez.
So, yeah, I was just.
I'm sorry about that.
Kind of how the claims had deteriorated to this point where they were getting completely absurd. So no, I never tried to kill anyone or bend it.
Yeah.
So.
No, and if I remember when I was reading your story a while back.
Yeah.
Not only did the cop kind of come out of nowhere and take you down and break your leg for pretty much no reason, there was no real altercation going on at that point,
right.
But also none of the others got charged. None of the alt-right were charged.
No. Yeah, and none of the other folks that were there on either side were arrested. So obviously I'd rather not have more people be arrested, but it came out. later, and my lawyer was arguing with the DA, like, why are you going so hard on this guy for gang assault? And like the cops clearly didn't think it was a gang thing, right? They didn't arrest anybody else. And nobody on the alt-right side was charged with anything. I was put in a police cruiser originally when I told them my leg hurts, I got to get medical treatment, and there was a guy who had come in at me and kind of he started swinging at me. That was my kind of that was what brought me into the fight, and he had kind of disappeared. I saw him through the cop car window, and I'm not usually the kind of guy to point somebody out to the cops, but it seems like kind of extenuating circumstances. And
Yeah.
So you add some context to kind of what happens, because it seems to be pretty bad, right? Like right from the get-go. And so I was like, that's the guy that swung on me. That guy attacked me, right? Which was true. And the cop that was in the driver's seat was like, okay, hang on, I'm gonna see what I can do. And he got out and he went over to the cop who arrested me, and they laughed about something, and then he came back and like that's all that happened. And my leg was
that's what all he can do is.
Yeah. So like I don't, I couldn't really, I couldn't get into it, but that was all that happened.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
If you look at the Upper East Side incident with the Proud Boys that happened 9 months later, I think, the same year. Do you know that there was like a brawl outside of the Republican Club, I think, on the Upper East Side after a Proud Boys event at which Gavin McInnes spoke? Yeah, there was a brawl that was pretty widely circulated on social media. There's a lot of footage of it. Some anti-fascists and some Proud Boys got into it, and Proud Boys essentially ended up kicking a bunch of anti-fascists while they were down on the ground.
Oh, yes. Okay.
There were 10 of them, I think. There were 10 defendants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, all those guys, were not originally arrested, even though the cops rolled up while they were like kicking people on the ground. They were all given pretty sweet plea deals. There was even a guy who had like prior felony convictions who kicked somebody down on the ground and was given like community service. So there's a pretty clear bias among police and towards the far right in a lot of ways, which is unfortunate. But
it's because usually they don't kick down their own kind.
Yeah.
So
it's about the size of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it sucks that you had to even go through this. Well, sucks that you had to go through any of that, but it sucks you had to go through the process of like trying to bargain it down to a less painful, unnecessary punishment, to something that shouldn't have been existed at all.
All right.
But I'm glad you were able to get it and get out.
Thanks, man.
Do you, because this was kind of a different plea, you were for I'm trying to send it myself now. You didn't plead guilty to the violent to the assault. So do you see that becoming a problem in the future for you, like trying to get a job, things like that? Will that still be on there?
Yeah, so I did plead guilty to attempted gang assault because they were not going to drop.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just the.
So what I pleaded
to
was attempted gang assault and assault with an instrument, and those are 2 counts of they're 2 violent felonies, and they both refer to the point at which I kicked the guy down on the ground. So because there were 3 or more people involved, it is a gang assault. They dropped it down to attempted to fit the like sentencing guidelines, which I thought was funny. That it's like they're clearly not really focused on the facts of the case. It's more about like kind of like plea, can we cobble together here? The judge and the bailiffs and everybody were like flipping through their law books, like, oh, if we drop it down to an attempt, that'll work. With that plea we worked out, that'll work. So I pleaded guilty to attempted gang assault and assault with an instrument, and the instrument was my shoe. I was wearing a very lightweight sneaker. I'm
sorry.
Listen, I've laughed at it many times. You're definitely not the first. I was wearing a Nike Rosha 1, all black, great looking shoe. But it's like it weighs like a quarter what a Converse All-Star weighs. It's like extremely lightweight. But they just wanted to fuck with me. So I pleaded guilty to those 2 violent felonies. I was convicted of them. And they are on my permanent record. They cannot be sealed in New York. I've generally worked freelance You know, I don't really see it being a huge problem. I'd also liked to get the hell out of this country. So like that would help. Yeah, I think I'll be okay. It is not great to be a convicted felon in the United States, but I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't
Yeah.
like. You know, it's not news to anyone. So yeah, it's not something I can really run away from, but I think that there are ways that I can work around it. And I think the good news is actually that kind of in the long term, it seems like there's momentum towards decarceration and towards justice for folks convicted of felonies. You know, I mean, I'm hoping that that momentum holds up, but it's something that's come into the public sphere, public debate, like the past few years that people weren't really talking about before. So, you know,
Well, yeah, for folks out there, that and much, much more will only happen if momentum's kept up by you guys and me
right?
and David and everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, so it was not the biggest problem that you had to deal with, but definitely up there must have really sucked is you were getting ready to leave the country in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your plans? Are to Paris, right? Or to France?
So yeah, so I was actually yeah, so the version that's on the website is a little oversimplified. I was actually
Oh,
well, it's okay, dude. It's a really complicated story. Like there's enough weird shit going on with my arrest and like what you know, it's like we don't need to get in all the details of my personal life. So I worked as a funeral director for years. And yeah, it's I mean, it's an alright job. That's a whole story about how I got into that. But like, you know, I told myself I'd give myself 5 years and check in with myself and be honest with myself about how I was feeling about the work and whether I wanted to do it for another 5 and kind of take it from there. So I did. That was like right around the time I got arrested. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna move on and do something else in my life. And I put in my 5 years, and like I felt good about that. So I put in my notice at work, and I was dating a French person, a French woman that you know things were going well. We'd met here in New York, but there was some back and forth to France. So I was gonna go. You know, I'd set a little money aside. Like I was gonna go, just kind of like quit my day job and like figure shit out and go spend some time with her. So that was really the reason. And in the course of me kind of figuring out what I wanted to do next, which I did do anyway after I was arrested and I was kind of laid up with a broken leg. I mean, I had nothing else to do. So like, I was like, okay, what's my next move? Of course it was all kind of like contingent on me not going to jail or whatever, but you know, I tried to plan out my life as best I could. And yeah, I found a great school in Paris for translation. They have a great master's program. It's like 5,000 euro a year, even if you're not an EU citizen, which is pretty great. Yeah. So
yeah.
I applied. I took a whole bunch of really difficult tests. I got in, and they're like, "Great, you can start grad school in September." And I was like, "Actually, I got to start jail in October." So I'd like to retest. Yeah, and I couldn't defer because I got out in October because I did 12 straight months. So the school year started September. You know, it would have been you can only defer for a year. So yeah, so that's my next move is to take that entrance exam in May, and hopefully I'll be going to school over there in September.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, that should work out. But that was a real disappointment. And then all this stuff in my personal life, you know, I wasn't able to hold the relationship together. It was just it's very stressful. I mean, if you know anything about like folks that are facing charges or you know, a partnership where one partner's incarcerated, it's like, you know, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work out, and that's unfortunate.
That's a stress.
Yeah, it's just too much stress. I mean, the not knowing what was going to happen, like how bad it was going to get and when, but also we were so close to like doing this thing together that was going to be really nice, and it didn't work out. So that it was a huge disappointment that that contributed to it as well. So that was very difficult, and that was kind of weighing on me while I was fighting my case as well. You know, and all that kind of contributed to me being really ready to just do the fucking time. Like when it came time for me to go in, I was like, yeah, let's get this fucking show on the road. Like I got 360 days. Let's fucking do it. You know, like I'm tired of all this, you know, like, of course that's how they wear you down, but you know, yeah, it worked.
Yeah. Well, as long as they get someone in there and then they'll get another person in there and they'll get another person in there. They like it to be longer, but you know, yeah, they're going to have someone
right
feeding the machine.
right.
Well, I mean, good luck to you on your you see you have to take the test again.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So good luck to you on that.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
I try
Well,
to.
if it didn't work out, Taiwan University is always taking people.
Oh
Just
yeah.
saying, come hang out over here.
Come visit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. If you don't mind, like a swamp, 8 months out of the year.
Is that what it's like over there?
It's just, well, it's just, no, it's nice. It's a tropical island. You know, it's just, it's hot, yeah, about 8 months out of the year, and it's got a rainy season and a typhoon season. That's your choices between weather. But no, it's a great place.
Yeah, it sounds nice.
So somebody asked, I kind of think I know the answer to this. What are the chances the cop was there on behalf of the alt-right? Like he was specifically waiting until you showed up. I don't think that happens as often as you think. It's not like a premeditated thing. It's just they're kind of looking out for each other.
Yeah, I think it was just, listen, in the footage you can see the cop come around the corner and, there's no sound, but you can kind of see him do a double take. I mean, it looks to me like his hands in his pockets. He wasn't there to break up the fight. He was doing something completely unrelated, and he just kind of stumbled upon it. And he sees me, I'm in black bloc, and I'm kind of trading pushes with a guy in a suit because I had a shirt and tie dress code for this event. My back's to him, so like, yeah, who do you think he grabs? It just kind of happened. And I think that he realized that he fucked up, it wouldn't have been nearly as big an issue if he hadn't broken my leg, but he did. So yeah, no, I don't think he was like there, on behalf of the alt-right in a really explicit way. I mean, and not any more than cops usually are.
Yeah.
Like the normal amount of there for the alt-right.
And in general for people,
yeah,
you don't even have to go into this realm of like Illuminati secret full-on conspiracy thing. No. You don't even have to go that deep. It's already shitty enough with just the fact that they're looking out for the alt-right side,
Right.
I'm not gonna say nothing. There's never been any type of backroom actual talk at all. I don't know, but you don't have to. You don't need to even get into that realm. And when you do, it might start to lose some credibility amongst when you're trying to bring more people over to your side. So for the most part, I think leaving the theories as theories until you've got hard evidence is probably the best way to go about that.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice, I think.
Yeah. And I set up a timer that was supposed to go off in this chat, and it has not. Any chat donations we get to Stream Elements, we switched from Stream. I don't remember what the other one was called. Stream Labs, because they were tricking people into signing up for their platform. So I don't want that happening to you. But we did sign up for, I did sign up for Stream Elements, and any chat donations you send to Stream Elements will be going to the Antifa International Defense Fund, which is the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, is something that helped you out. That
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I got a little bit of money from them to like stay afloat when I was first arrested and injured. I wasn't in for very long. I was in custody for 4 days when I was first arrested, but like I went to the ER, I went to a different hospital that specialized in orthopedic surgery. I got orthopedic surgery. I learned to walk on crutches. I was arraigned, and then I was sent home. And it was like, okay, cool. Now I just have a broken leg and like, all this like bad press. And it was like, okay, well, I couldn't physically work even if my name hadn't been dragged through the mud. So I wasn't really sure how to rent and stuff like that. And I guess some friends reached out to them. I didn't reach out to them. I'd actually never heard of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the time I'd never heard of them. I mean, I wasn't super deep in anti-fascist organizing. I think it's a thing that like, everyday people should be doing. And I don't really I've been like,
Absolutely.
yeah, right. Like it's, all it takes is for you to do a little bit here and there. It doesn't have to be this insular, like in-group sort of cliquey activity, or worldview. It's not that complicated, guys. It's not. Just like, don't overthink.
And a matter of fact, a lot of the cliques that you might see, like a Dallas Antifa group on, you might see a crew, but even a lot of those, it's just people getting together. It's not always like
Yeah.
they don't have team uniforms other than a big black shirt, and a hoodie.
Totally.
Yeah, like anyone can get involved. Just start doing what you can.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And I felt like when fascism started to become a problem in the U.S., I was lucky enough to have kind of connections in the anarchist scene, because I've been kind of in and out of the anarchist scene, here and there, just out of interest, but it wasn't really central to my life, right? So yeah, I was kind of lucky to have those connections and know where to go to do anti-fascist work, and I wouldn't really have been able to like feel good about myself if I had just like not done that, because it is something that requires everyday people to just jump in and do it. So that's what I was doing. So I didn't really have a lot of anti-fascist connections, or like I wasn't aware of the International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund. And I guess some friends reached out. They came out of nowhere and were like, "Yo, here's some money to get by. Like that'll hold you down for rent, groceries, for a couple months." And then yeah, they basically hooked it up again while I was in jail, and again when I get out, so that like I'm good for a little bit. It's enough so that I can kind of get my head right now that I'm out, which is very. It's not. I didn't do that long, and I wasn't like far away from family and friends, but like a lot has happened in the past 12 months that has been really fundamentally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of shit going on. So it's a weird world out here, and I'm really glad that I have a grace period. I'm also like, dude, I'm so grateful for it, because most of the guys that I was in with are like, oh, I heard Amazon's hiring. It's like, oh, it sucks, man. Work in a warehouse like, day 3 of your freedom. It's like you're gonna be running a robot for minimum wage or whatever. Like, so yeah, I'm really grateful for it. Yeah, International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund is awesome. They've done a lot of good work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I just because I've never been incarcerated for anything. I've done
What?
some.
That's
No,
good.
I know I lost my cred.
That means
I've never been incarcerated.
It means you're getting away with it.
No, no, I mean I've done like a couple of nights in lockup before, for
That's more
stupid
than I
things
had
when I
done
was
before.
young. But
That's more than I had done before I was arrested. I never even
no,
spent a drunk tank. Yeah. And then I did a straight year on Rikers.
yeah. Well, so if I remember reading correctly in the blog that was on your site,
Yeah.
they were. Oh, I keep accidentally like disappearing. I'm just gonna do this. They were planning on closing down your wing, or they did close down your wing that you were in, and moved you, which got me to reading a little more about this. I didn't realize that they were trying to close down Rikers, but at the same time, that means they're planning on opening up 4 new prisons. So
So there's a great group called No New Jails, NYC.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that does a lot of really cool abolitionist organizing against those new borough-based jails. So there's going to be one in every borough except Staten Island, because a lot of cops live there and they don't want a jail near them. They just want to put people in.
Of course.
So the plan was to close Rikers by 2025, I think, or 2026. As part of that, they were slowly closing the buildings one by one, because Rikers isn't one building; it's a whole island, largely composed of trash. By the way, like a lot of Rikers is landfill, which I think is very appropriate. There's all kinds of problems, like methane fucking bubbles appearing. It's terrible. Anyway.
Oh God.
Yeah, listen, whatever. We'll talk about it some other time. But there's a lot of buildings on Rikers, and there's a couple smaller buildings throughout the boroughs that are not on Rikers, but are still part of the Department of Correction of New York City. And so they started slowly closing these buildings, right, as a plan to close them all, close Rikers, and like redo the physical infrastructure of warehousing people to correct them within the next few years. And so this was all pre-COVID, right? I started my bid October 2019, October 23rd, and January 7th, I was driven across the streets. It took 13 hours, but I was driven across the street to another building. Yeah, they fuck everything up. It's incredible. But like,
Wow.
yeah. So I was sent to another building. The moving process was pretty terrible, but whatever. And that's where I did most of my time, was in C74, the 4 building. But I had started my bid in EMTC. It's also known as the 6 building, C76, and it's like it was the chillest building on Rikers because everyone there is sentenced, right? So like nobody's serving more than 16 months, right? You can't do your time in the city if your sentence is more than 2 years, and out of 2 years, with good behavior, you do 16 months. Rikers time, you only do 2/3. That's why like my sentence was 18 months, but I was home in 12 because I didn't lose any good time. So yeah, they ended up opening that building back up once coronavirus hit as a quarantine building, and I'm not sure if they've closed it again now or what's up. But yeah, they opened it back up a couple months after they closed it and just started sending everyone with symptoms over there.
Yeah. So that was actually going to be my next question. Yeah, how does that work? I don't have much information about how that like what's the, whether it's followed or not, what is the proposed plan to keep inmates safe, that at least as far as you know of?
For COVID, like from coronavirus?
Yeah, for COVID.
Oh shit, I don't know, man. I don't know. Listen, there's a huge disconnect between what's being said publicly and like what's actually going on in jail, and I don't think I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Saying that, right? Like, but one example, there was some buzz in the news in the spring about Rikers inmates burying the dead, the coronavirus dead, at Hart Island, which is like it's what's called a potter's field, right? So it's basically a public cemetery. It's
Yeah.
for folks who don't have money or don't have any family to claim the bodies, right? So when the morgues in the city started overflowing with COVID bodies, they were sending them to Hart Island, and inmates have traditionally done the labor of burying the bodies there. There was some buzz in the news about it, and the DOC came out saying that it was an all volunteer work detail, right? So like, they asked inmates if they wanted to do it, and they said yes. And they raised the pay to like $6 a day or whatever, which is, really good money for jail. Yeah, or $6 an hour, whatever. It's really good money for jail, but it's not good money in any other circumstances. And that's what they were saying. That's what the DOC was saying publicly. I knew guys that lost good time, right? Like they lost months. They extended their stay in jail by months because they refused to go to Hart Island and bury the folks that had died from COVID with no PPE, right?
Yeah.
Like they were punished for that at the same time. So there's this huge, all this stuff about us having masks, being able to distance. It was really all nonsense. There's a little more nuance to it than that, but at the end of the day, it's nonsense. The prison system, like the police, they're not really used to being held accountable. They're not really used to transparency. In fact, it's a system that's like completely inimical to transparency, right? Like they can do whatever they want. Yeah. So they're just used to that. So they'll say whatever they need to say to make it go away. When I was there in the very beginning, it was so bad for a couple weeks. We pulled off a very short strike. I wrote about it on Hardcrackers. If you look up, there's an article I wrote. It's called "Stick Up on Rikers Island" on Hardcrackers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I wrote about that, and we basically, a stick up is it's kind of like a strike. A stick up could be anything as simple as refusing to go somewhere when they tell you to. This particular stick up was like 2 dorms of 45 people each, so it was almost 100 people that were like, we're not going to work, we're not leaving the dorm for meals, like you need to release as many people as possible and give the rest of us PPE and cleaning products, because they weren't doing that. And we actually had some success with it, which was fucking dope. It's one of the coolest things I've done. I won't talk your off about it because there's a whole article that you can read when you have your own on your own time, but we had some success with it. And so after that initial phase of confrontation and them really refusing to do anything at all, I mean, it was really mind-boggling. I couldn't believe, and I went in like with very low expectations, it's like, but, it was just crazy how they refused to do the smallest thing to prevent the spread of COVID, for themselves or for the inmates. After that, we started to get masks slowly. I think Meek Mill and Jay-Z donated like 100,000 masks to Rikers. It's like, thanks.
No.
Yeah, like, that was cool. And then, slowly it became easier to get masks and stuff like that. But the COs stopped wearing them. I mean, they were never really serious about wearing them. And then a lot of inmates stopped wearing them. I mean,
well, I'm sure you've seen on the outside now as well. Not a lot of people are that serious about wearing them anyways, as they should be.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, so I've been like slowly taking it all in, and it took me a while to kind of get the COVID etiquette down on the outside. I mean, a while. I've only been out for 7 weeks, but like, people weren't really wearing masks inside because their lives are not in their control, right? And it was in the news yesterday, by the way. Numbers are ticking way back up on Rikers, right? So, imagine, you're housed in this dorm. It's about the size of a basketball court. Your beds are about 2.5 feet apart, even if it's a half capacity and you can actually sleep every other bed, you're still sharing like one sink, one shower, you're breathing the same air, it's not like you can go in your room, shut the door and open the window, and so guys, after a few months, I mean, what am I going to do? They're like, I'm going to wear a mask 24/7. I'm going to sleep in a mask. Like, fuck it. Like the CEOs aren't wearing masks. I don't control like where I go when. So like asking or acting like COVID was over, and it's unfortunate, but it's like, it's a reflection of the fact that the institution's not taking it seriously. The institution's not doing it.
Yeah.
And they did release a lot of people. That was super cool. Shortly after we stuck it up, a few days after we stuck it up, they released like everybody in my dorm except 10 of us. Just like got up. It was so dope. It was like a once in a lifetime thing. They called out a list of names, and like, yeah, over the next like 12 hours, these people were just like, see ya. They just like left everything in the dorm. And then the handful of us that were left in there were just like, okay, I guess we're too dangerous.
Guess not enough for for a guy who would assault with a Nike.
Yeah, assault with a Nike Rosha 1. Yeah, it's a dangerous shoe. Well, I had a lot of pressure to get me out, and thank you, by the way, to everyone who tried to get me out early. You fucking rock. There is so much. There's a calling campaign, email campaign, all kinds of shit, dude. There's a lot of activity. My lawyer was really hustling. My lawyer was fucking awesome, talking with the DA. And they kept saying, no, we're not going to consent to David Campbell's release. I think the last thing my lawyer heard from the highest ranking person she was in touch with at the DA's office was, there's no way in hell that'll happen. And 2 hours later, a couple of journalists who had emailed the DA saying, hi, we're writing stories about David Campbell's case, and we're wondering if you have any statement, DA's office, as to why he's not being released, right? I have no record, I have no priors, I mean, 2 violent felonies on paper, but it was kind of a bullshit case. Not a risk to the community, like what's going on. And the media wing, like the PR wing of the DA's, the Manhattan DA's office, emailed them both back saying, yes, in fact, we do have a comment. David Campbell has been approved for release, subject to electronic monitoring. And that just like never happened. So for about a month there, I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to be home on an ankle band any day now. And people were really keeping up the pressure and stuff. But ultimately, my lawyer was like, yeah, they just want to pat themselves on the back about your case. They do not want to let you go, not because you're dangerous, but because they just don't want to let you go. And they're the DA's office. And like the cops, like the prisons, they're not used to being held accountable for anything. They don't like being told that people watch what they do, so they're just not going to do it. So that's.
Oh yeah, no. Sorry. Yeah, that's you could put a lot of that, the entire what's going on in the streets right now with the George Floyd uprising. On that is just simple. The cops could be like, oh, whoa, you guys seem pissed. Let's listen to you. But no, they just don't like being held accountable. Right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's you know, I learned a lot. I feel about very basic stuff, uh, human behavior stuff that I think we all know as children, and we often forget as we grow older. But because so many people acted so childishly in such close proximity to me for so long, for a year, you know, it's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. I feel like I really learned a lot about people in there. You know, it's like when we were like asking the CEOs nicely, like, can you get us masks? Like, can you check your temperatures when you come to work? And they're like, fuck you. Like, we're not gonna do that. You're fucking inmates. It's like, okay, like, but like, come on. You know, it was really crazy. But you know, I feel like I did learn a lot from it. You know.
So on that vein,
Yeah.
you don't, you may not have an answer for this, but what are your feelings on prison abolition in that
Yeah.
regard?
I'm more of an abolitionist than I've ever been. I actually wrote a piece. I wrote a lot while I was in. I've always written. This was kind of nice in that way. I mean, you know, and I was able to like, okay, not pay rent. I don't have any distractions, right? Like, I have a phone, like, so I just sit down and write all day, you know. And so I got a piece. I'm shopping around. I got to get it published somewhere. But about a lot of things, but that in particular, abolition, kind of in the way it's framed now. Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm all for it. I think we should beware of, you know, co-optation by the state and by sort of, you know, liberals that, you know,
Oh yeah,
but like
yeah.
co-optation is a normal part of sort of the radical process, right? It's like, or it's a normal kind of response, right, by the more established interests to these more radical ideas that are put forward. Like they inevitably get gobbled up and then regurgitated, but completely devoid of any meaning by folks that are threatened by them, right? And so it's like it's on us to really hold that line down and say what we mean. And I think we can do that, but we also don't have to have all the answers. That's really important for me. There's an awesome book called The Politics of Abolition that I read while I was in, where
Who wrote that?
it's this like Norwegian communist sociologist guy.
Oh no, that's not the one.
It was written in the 70s and then republished in 2015. But he talks a lot about this idea of the unfinished, right? Like you don't have to have everything worked out. In fact, if you do, it's much more likely that your sort of your set of ideas, your platform, your policy, your philosophy, whatever, will calcify and be much more easily rendered harmless, right, by the powers that be.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I don't want to get too like intellectual with it, but like I think it's an important thing to keep in mind because the knee-jerk response to abolition is what about the rapists? What about the serial killers and the
Yeah.
terrorists? And like, dude, that's a great question, right? Like, I do not want like psycho killing rapists, terrorists walking around the street, right? But I'm not worried about that, right? I'm much more worried about the fact that we lock up millions of people who don't need to be locked up.
Yeah.
I think that we can take it day by day, step by step. And the first thing to do would be to start scaling back the incarcerated population and scaling back alternatives to incarceration that actually widen the carceral net. So, like electronic monitoring sounds great, but if anyone's been confined at home due to COVID, you know what that's like. Imagine that with Big Brother, like with his nose up your butt. You know, that's really not a pleasant idea. And those sorts of programs tend to bring in people who wouldn't naturally be under the thumb of the state in the first place, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, 20 years ago, you would be dismissed with a ticket, you know, for something simple. Now you put on electronic monitoring. So now you're like actively, you know, in the prison industrial complex.
You're still, yeah, exactly. You're just still connected into them, literally.
Yes. Right. Yeah. You're physically,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, yeah. So we should be aware of like all these things that sounds good, but actually just bring more people under state control. Because that's kind of a natural thing. I mean, I'm an anarchist. I think you know, again, let's not overthink it. Like, it's not that complicated. You know, power tends to concentrate itself and perpetuate itself, and it finds reasons to keep itself busy and like control other things than its original mission. You know, so you know, like it's only natural that that happens with the prison system. We need to be aware of that. But yeah, I mean, without saying like, sure, let's burn all the prisons tomorrow and let like just open every single door and like that's the answer. I'm totally an abolitionist, more so than I've ever been. You know, and I think there's a again, I don't want to go like down a whole rabbit hole of discussing tactics and rhetoric and theory, but like I think there's an important distinction to be made between like kind of sloganeering, kind of rhetoric. Like I'm thinking of hashtag free them all, which is great. Like, I'm so dope that
Mm.
it's out there, you know, and it's like short and it's catchy and it's like, it brings this radical idea to the forefront. But like, I met like a few guys that I would not be comfortable with just like walking by my grandma's house.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I met like 5 of them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like
Well,
6.
yeah, even in the extreme example of like, even if they just opened up every single door in the USA, if for every president in the USA,
Yeah.
I would personally still think there'd be more good than harm done. But yeah, there would be some harm for
It would
sure.
harm, and it would be difficult to like just walk around without a, you know, guilty conscience if it's like that.
Yeah, it's like,
If,
did I
like,
get
the
someone
reason-
killed? Yeah.
Yeah, right. You're the reason they let that serial killer out and like went around like chopping people
Yeah.
up. Well, you'd feel kind of like an asshole. But look, I mean, they released a lot of people from Rikers, a lot of other jurisdictions as well. But like, we can look at this example in real time, right? Like, this is not theory, right? It's like they released all these people from Rikers. They released like 1,500 people from Rikers, and like a tiny fraction, I think like less than 3%, were rearrested and reappeared at Rikers. I saw a couple guys, by the way, that released and like came back, but they were like heroin addicts. I mean, it's people who are addicted to hard drugs.
Yeah.
You know, it's like nobody's on the streets that like, oh shit, I'm gonna like steal this engine block. You know, it's like, or something, you know, like really ambitious but not feasible. You know, like druggy projects. So, but like, yeah, I mean, we can look at like what's happening in real time, dude. They released a bunch of people, just like literally opened the gates and let them out, right? And you know, most of them just fine. Like, they're not out there killing people, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I did put that that Hardcrackers article in
Thanks.
in the chat for everyone if you want to read it. Yeah, going back to what you were saying about co-optation, you know, it's the famous, the misattributed, if people don't know, quote to Gandhi: first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then they join you, then you win.
Yeah.
First of all, it's not actually attributed. It's attributed to him. It's false. It was actually Nicholas Klein, a union activist,
Okay.
who said, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they attack you and want to burn you, and then they build monuments to you. But the thing that always made me kind of wary of the version that's attributed to Gandhi is they put in, then they join you.
Yeah.
And be careful of that.
Yeah.
Because if someone's truly a convert, great. And I know some I know some ex-Nazis who are anti-fascist now, and that's great. You know, and they had to do a lot of work to build up trust and to and to get there, and that's understandable and how it should be. But especially when we're talking about an establishment trying to join you, like they're probably not joining you for your sake. You know, like it's co-opting. Yeah, it's recuperation.
Right. Yeah, recuperation is a good word for it. You see another real-time example from the Floyd protests, Floyd rebellion. Cops started taking knees around the country.
Yeah.
You know, in New York, it was on the cover of the Daily News. The Daily News is the only print newspaper that you get on the regular in Rikers, except for the Diario.
Oh, really?
Spanish. Yeah, and it's edited. Like, they rip out the stories that make like cops and COs look bad. It's like, yeah. I had the job of working in the mailroom for a little while, and like I felt bad about like ripping out this story. I mean, of course, I was pocketing them and bringing them back to the dorm. Like,
there you go.
I still felt bad about like censoring everybody else's paper, so I had to quit. But you know, yeah, but it's like, you know, the cover of the New York Daily News was this picture of a bunch of police officers kneeling and like holding arms with protesters and like, woo, you know. And that cop, like that exact cop who was at the center of that picture, later issued a statement that he was like ashamed and he feared for his life, and that was the reason he knelt. You know, he didn't mean it. He didn't think Black Lives Matter or something stupid like that. And it's like, dude, you know, I could have told you that. You know, like I could have told you that from the get-go. Like, yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing where.
Well, except for the part for him fearing for his life, he didn't fear for his life from
sure he didn't. No, but he wasn't sincere in it, right? Like, he was finding excuses to justify it, and he didn't really mean it. And so, like, even the cops who don't come out with public statements about that, like, more likely to not feel that way. And even if they don't feel that way, it's still a huge problem. But yeah, it's like it's very easy to say you're down for the cause when you can tell which way the wind is blowing. It doesn't mean shit until you got to step up, and take some action. I mean, that's what really matters. And especially if you're talking about some big amorphous institution, right? That doesn't have a real public face, might have like figures in particular public places, positions. But it's got all its like paperwork and lingo and like processes to kind of obscure the process of real change. It's like we got to be really wary of those institutions, those type of folks claiming to be on board.
Oh yeah. Well, in keeping with the Floyd uprising, is Buffalo. Buffalo, where they knocked the guy down and he was bleeding from his ear.
Oh, the older man. Yeah, the
older man. Yeah. The day before, that exact same spot, because you can see they got like these big ball, like kind of barrier looking things.
Yeah.
You can see it's the exact same spot. They did a kneel. They did one of their publicity stunts for the kneeling, and the next day pushed the guy and made him bleed out his ear and almost killed him.
Did not know that. Yeah, that's
exact same spot.
Great real time.
Yeah.
And
then even like the Black Lives Matter Boulevard that they changed in DC.
Yeah.
There's that sounds great and all, like, oh, they hear you. And then there were some folks and of course some POC folks who's opened up like a hot dog stand or like a food stand. We're giving away free food to all the protesters, just giving it away. Cops came up, not only shut them down, smashed their equipment, just like straight up like a shakedown, just like destroyed their cart, like $10,000 worth of equipment.
Damn. That's worse than the pre-COVID New York news about them. They're like stepping up enforcement on the subways, and they were arresting all the people who sell fucking what's the word? The little like cute little old Mexican ladies who sell like sweets in the subways and shit.
Oh yeah.
It's like it's worse than that. Churros.
Yeah.
They're arresting the churro ladies. That's what
Sure, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's nonsense. Yeah, so it's shit like that where it's like it's easy to it's not easy, and unfortunately it takes a lot of work, right? But once you pass the breaking point in terms of public pressure, it's easy for whatever authority to paint Black Lives Matter in as big letters as they want, wherever they want. But it doesn't mean shit, right? Unless really follow that up at every level. And you know what?
And they're not.
Mistakes happen, miscommunications happen, sure. But like you'll forgive my skepticism if I think that like it was just a one-time fluke. Like it's like
no.
That's part of the course.
No one around here does.
Yeah, I believe it. They had a bunch of activists who went in and like painted defund the police on the tail end of that Black Lives Matter mural in DC, I think, as well, because they weren't reducing the police budget. I think that's another example from DC as well, that they I think the municipal authority, the mayor, whatever, painted Black Lives Matter in giant font and then did nothing to reduce the police budget, which it's a problem.
No, I think she even increased it slightly.
Right, yeah. So
same thing with Biden. Yeah, he's
right.
Someone tweeted a while back was that this is before the elections, was Trump. It's like, you asshole, you're under arrest. Biden, Harris, we hear you, we see you, we're with you, and you're under arrest.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah,
well,
and
that's another thing too about like I don't mean to like bring everything back to my case, but the DA's office is Democratic, like it's run by an elected Democrat, right? Who's like all about the language of social justice, prosecuted Harvey Weinstein, all this sort of stuff, and then it's like, oh, but the far right is right. Antifa is a threat to like the world or whatever, and we're not affiliated with them. They're eager to prove that they have nothing to do with like the violent far left or whatever, and it's really taking the bait on that front. It's not always as explicit, right? It's often much more like subtle, where there's the language of progress and freedom, equality, whatever. And then it actually boils down to proving something to the far right, you know.
Absolutely. And Flash Flood Area in the comments need to end cash bail too. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Any form, well, even outside of just the jail, punitive system, in any form where money is used as your punishment or your get out of punishment is ridiculous. Is specifically a tax on the poor or a punishment for being poor.
Totally. Yeah, I don't think there's really any way around that. Yeah, cash bail's fucked up. So they passed this law that eliminated bail for most crimes. It went into effect on New Year's Day of this year. So I was
This is in New York.
Yeah, New York State. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd been in for like 2 months, a little more than 2 months, and I was with sentenced inmates. Sentenced inmates are housed with sentenced inmates. Detained inmates are housed with detained inmates. Detained means not convicted of a crime yet, right? You're facing charges for something. And if they think like you're a threat, you're a flight risk, or pre this law going into effect, if you just don't have like $500 for bail, then you'll be held in custody. You'll be detained, right? While they figure out what's going on with your criminal charges. So a lot of people left because they limited cash bail for a lot of like lower level offenses, which is definitely a start. But I'm always like, I'm also wary about patting ourselves on the back too much about these incremental changes. I mean, I think they are great, but they're also like, it's kind of a no-brainer, dude. It's like, we shouldn't have been doing the other thing to begin with, So, we should take what we can get and be happy about it, but let's not build it up too much,
Yeah. Well, the way I see it is my fear is people going to sleep after incremental changes.
Yeah.
Totally. Use it as fuel, not as a sedative. Use it as fuck yeah, we got one more under the belt. Let's get 5 more now.
Yeah.
Don't, for everyone out there, don't let it say like, oh, well, finally I got something. Oh, that's good enough. I'm gonna go take a break.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The idea of non-reformist reforms is really popular right now, especially in the abolitionist discourse. And I think the important thing for me to remember about those is that they have to build on each other, right? They can't really, they have to contribute to each other and form this sort of chain of chipping away at the carceral system and the police system, but they have to work together. They can't just be like, cool, we're done.
Yeah, Enrique Malatesta has a really good piece on our anarchist reformists. It's like a 10-minute read. It's super short.
I don't know that one.
Yeah. Malatesta I think it's called. It might just be called Reformism or our anarchist reformists, which basically it came to the conclusion of yes, we do take reforms and we run with them, and we take that as capturing ground in a war. It just is like you're taking down cities as you move your campaign.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean we work within the system, and it doesn't mean that we take a reform as a win, as the win.
As the win, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna definitely give that a read.
Yeah, Malatesta got some good stuff. I used if you ever played the video game Portal, I did a video recently with GLaDOS, the AI, and I had her read off a section of that.
That sounds the reference is like I don't know. Portal. Yeah, sorry. But it sounds great. Like all about it.
It's just a really weird sounding AI voice.
Great. All about it. As I think we discussed briefly via email, you gotta keep the fash guessing at all times.
Yeah, exactly.
At all times. Yeah.
Yeah. For anyone who out there doesn't know, my name is not actually Donald Beard.
Do you know there's another Breadbeard on YouTube? It's like a Captain Breadbeard.
Yeah.
It's like about pirates and baking. Something like that.
And I've actually watched a few of those episodes, and I'm kind of jealous. I kind of wish I'd gone down that road sometimes.
Never too late. Never too late.
Yeah. For anyone on well, I guess if you're on Twitch or Facebook, it's Soft Boy Social Club, by the way. But as far as prison reform, kind of to bring it back to that, kind of always my thought is temporarily, like, yeah, you couldn't just shut down all prison. Like earlier, I was saying like that would still be better than keeping them all in, and that I do believe that. But as far as an actual like thought out plan, I would say something like letting out first, just day one, letting out nonviolent offenders. Just there's no reason to have nonviolent offenders in prison. And then as you work with the other ones, the eventual end goal, if you can say there is an end goal, would be to get rid of scarcity, get rid of make sure everyone's basic needs are met. And then you don't have to worry. So much of violent crime is based off of necessity. So, and there's some people like rapists and stuff like that.
Right.
In my mind, there would still be some form of humane detention center. Like it's not meant as a punishment. It's just meant to, hey, you can't be a part of society.
Sure.
And maybe different places have different ideas on how nice that place is, Sure. But
yeah, that's an idea I encountered in this the Politics of Abolition Revisited book as well. There were two different organizations. It's on Scandinavia, where they have like the most humane prison system in the world, which is actually a whole thing. It's a double-edged sword, right? Like there's more humane prisons, make them more palatable, and like
if you're homeless, you just want to get 4 squares on a cot, or 3 squares on a cot.
A lot of homeless dudes. I mean, it's a short-term facility. I didn't go upstate, right? Like there's nobody serving life sentences there. It's a short-term facility. They got what they call frequent flyers, which I think is different from like frequent flyers in terms of airline travel. But it's like, dude living on the street, whatever. And every like October, he just like throws a rock at a passing cop car and like gets arrested, gets booked for like a 4-month bid or something. And first part of the year, he's got a roof over his head. He's got a little money coming in, not much, but 3 hots in a cot, all that. So, maybe he's got some like status in jail. A lot of these guys know each other. They're in and out, right? They're like,
that's true.
Maybe he's got some respect in jail. Maybe he's somebody in there. So yeah, there's a lot of that. But I don't really think that making jails more comfortable will make people want to go in. I think it's more about public opinion and like, will it make it harder to say we should abolish them, right? It's like, well, that bad, you know what I mean? And I listen, I don't have my mind made up on that. I'm figuring this all out as I go, dude. Like I'm definitely not an expert, and I deeply believe that you should beware of people who have all the answers. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot we could do to make the prison a lot less painful. I'm also wary of the distinction between violent and non-violent offenders, because I'm a violent offender. That's like on paper what I am, right? I'm a violent felon.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should clarify. Most violent offenders, I also believe should be, but just non-violent offenders is not even a question.
Yeah. You mentioned that as a starting point, and listen, I think that's great because it would be marketable to like you're like the mass of people, right? It would be appealing to people who are like, oh my god, but what about violent? It would totally eliminate that issue and would make it more sellable. So like that's great. I'm all for that. That's just often a division that you see kind of it's the same thing as saying, what about the serial killers, but like slightly more toned down level. What about the violent folks? Yeah,
I think people watching too many movies really overestimate the amount of serial killers there are in the world.
Like the amount of tracking them that police do, which is not a lot. Like it's not.
Yeah.
There's not always a new serial killer like every season. Like there is on NCIS or whatever.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's not really most of what police do or most of who's in jail. Is serial killers.
So going back to one stipulation that you might have some more insight than I do.
Yeah.
About even if we did just let out all these people,
Sure.
and maybe this even happened when they let out the people for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, if you just let people out that have nothing,
yeah,
don't you have some responsibility? Not you, the establishment, the prison, doesn't it, or shouldn't it have some responsibility to give them a leg up? Because so what happened in my home state in South Carolina, in Columbia, South Carolina,
Mhm.
there is this super old mental facility called Bull Street Asylum, which is on Bull Street. And Bull Street was run down. It was getting really bad. And actually, when I was in high school, I even had a friend who was in it. Which has nothing to do with anything. They finally just closed it down, and turned out it was because it's on prime real estate and they just wanted to sell it. But they closed it down and they just released all the patients just on their own, and now most of them are homeless because they had nothing. Because unfortunately, also a big part of mental facilities is people just get tired of caring for it. It's kind of the same idea of like a retirement center. That their family just gets tired of caring for them, and they'll make up an excuse of, oh well, they'll be better helped out here, when really there's just not much. They just didn't want to deal with it. But anyway, they had nothing. The ones that weren't even that bad often had no family because they were stuck there, and now they just live homeless. So is there some type, do you have any thoughts or any feelings about what we should how that would go about?
Yeah, you talking about like post-release, like social service programs, stuff like
Yeah,
that?
like if we, even as it is now, but also if we were to do like a mass, if we were to start releasing people.
Sure. What would we do to take care of them, like at a policy level?
Yeah, or should we, or
Well, you definitely should. I mean, if you don't, you're just like setting yourself up for failure, because, like, as you pointed out, most crimes are crimes of poverty, like the overwhelming majority, right? So that ties into this sort of larger abolitionist vision, and setting up a society that allows more access to resources and better like development of the self, whatever, for everyone, so that we don't have these arbitrary divisions that create all this completely unnecessary like lack of access to resources, and a lot of resentment and stuff that goes with that between people in different groups. But I think that post-release programs are actually supposed to be pretty good in New York. They're like pretty robust, whatever. And that is really scary because they suck. Like, like really, like I filled out a piece of paperwork. They sent me to something called discharge planning, right? Which is where they send you to plan for your discharge, right? I mean, you're released from prison, not like your infection.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I had an STD joke I was holding away from right there.
They send you discharge planning before you go home. They called me down to discharge planning in like December. I was like, I'm like a month and change in. Like what, and I filled out a piece of paperwork that said, no, I don't have HIV. Yes, I want food stamps. Yes, I want Medicaid. And they gave me a t-shirt and a pair of socks, and I never heard from them again. And when I left, I was not signed up for Medicaid or food stamps, and like done all that on my own. Shit. Yeah, and that's like supposed to be the best, not the best, but like guys who've done time in other states and the feds, even upstate, because it's a completely different system, from the New York City local jail system. They'll tell you like, oh, it's pretty good. The services here in New York are pretty good. Now that may be truer for folks that have some sort of mental illness that they can demonstrate on paper. I really don't know. But in my experience, there's like nothing going on. And I don't have any income right now. Like I don't have anything on paper, to demonstrate that I'm not a person in need. I'm recently incarcerated, coming back out into the world. And as I mentioned, the International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund, some friends, family have given me a little bit to get by, but like, dude, it's like I need all the social service I can get. Like a lot of people in COVID, So there's really nothing to speak of, and Yeah, it's pretty scary. I think that to actually answer your question instead of just kind of talking about my experience being
Well,
released.
no, that's fine.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great question. Like, what do you do for folks being released, and like, what specifically do you give them? I think the same sort of things that we should have in access that we should have in place for people to have access to in the first place, right? Would be great for post release, right? Like access to healthcare, including mental health care, access to resources, including food, housing, and like fulfilling work, right? Or if not fulfilling work, like necessary work that allows you time to do things that are important to you. You know, those sorts of things. Like, I don't think that's that unreasonable if they have the money to build these huge fucking jails. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, no new jails can tell you a lot more about it than I can if you look at their website. But it's like, you know, it's such a silly idea that we should be putting all these money into jails because it's like not the right time yet, you know, to scale back the prison industrial complex or whatever. But it's like never the right time. You know, you have
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well,
you,
and
yeah,
that's what it seems to me like. It's and I definitely know I'm not alone with this. It's a multi-front war.
yeah,
It's more fronts, and because it's a social war, you know, it's more fronts than any physical
yeah,
wars ever had.
yeah,
Because yeah, you have to tackle getting rid of prisons, but also yeah, you don't want to just throw people out on the street homeless. So you got to tackle welfare reform, and you've got to tackle it in a manner to make sure that it actually helps people rather than just, you know, having all these different means testing and you know, stuff like that.
yeah.
And to do that, you've got to tackle the money going into politicians. And so yeah,
Yeah.
it's we can't just attack just one area
No, and it's
and
like
hope it'll
it's
work.
it's enough to make you say, you know, we're all fucked and I'm just gonna stop trying. But you can't do that. I mean, you can, but like it's not personally for me, I've honestly tried to do that like several times in my life. And it's just like not fulfilling. I mean, just like there's things that sure you may never achieve. There's things you may never be sure about, but there are things that you can be reasonably certain um, are worth fighting for and align with
Mhm.
kind of your goals. And if you're a person who sat down and considered what they believe and why they believe it and what the right actions to take based on that are, then it's really hard to just like live with yourself if you're not doing anything at all, based on trying to, oh God, I guess make the world a better place. You know, whatever. But like
It
really,
is what it is.
yeah, dude, it's not that complicated. It's like, again, not that complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, I think it is often like tempting to just give in to despair. Um, but yeah, you really can't do that. There's a lot to be done, and it is a multi-front war.
I'll tell you something I've told people before actually that have kind of
Yeah,
gotten into despair and
yeah,
like I said, it's too hard is go tell someone why. And or even if you do just go tell a mirror, but especially if you go tell someone why. Don't say like, well, unfortunately I'm too busy, blah blah blah. But no,
yeah,
just go tell someone it's too hard and you can't do it. And it, you probably can't do that. You'll find yourself in like you'll go the other way. You're like, nah, fuck it. I'll go find some way to help, some action to do. Because
yeah.
that sucks to have to go tell someone I wussed out,
I'm
you
giving up.
know. Yep.
Yeah, no,
And
that's a good exercise. That's a nice trick.
and that's not to say like everyone has their limits and
Totally.
their ability level, you know. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
No, no, I didn't think it that way. You know, I think like, you know, there's also tactical retreats, man. Like I took a fucking break.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I didn't want to go to jail. I never, man. When I was fighting my case in the beginning, you know, I remember I was tossing around like how it might pan out with my brother. Really close to my brother. He's fucking awesome. And you know, we talked about case strategy and you know a lot. I would get some bombshell piece of fucking news from my lawyer, and I'd be like, I'd come home and I'd be like, well, you know, they're trying to send me upstate for 4 years, you know, and we would talk about it. And early on in my case, you know, I remember having a discussion with him over dinner. It's like, I'm not gonna take a plea for a violent felony. Like that would be ridiculous. Like, why would I do that? If they want that kind of conviction, they can fucking earn it. I'll go to trial. You know, of course, as time went on and it became clear that the 3.5 year mandatory minimum was like no, definitely a real thing that would
Which
play at trial. Yeah, no, it's fucked. It's like if I lost a trial, which very low standard of evidence for gang assault, right? You just have to prove that 3 people were in a fight. And it can be in a fight can be like being behind a guy who's punching someone, being like, yeah, punch him. That's enough. You don't have to prove affiliation. You don't have to prove that they know each other. So anyway, that's why I said earlier it's kind of impossible to beat. I remember having this discussion with my brother early on, like, I got to plead to a violent felony, you know. Then lo and behold, like a year and a half later, I'm like, there's just nothing else I can do. And it required a lot of like swallowing my pride and like trying to like take some deep breaths and be like, all right, you know, this is actually the smart move. So sometimes,
I mean, you're out now, so
dude, I'm done, and I'm not on paper at all. I don't have probation, parole. Like, I'm good, man. I'm
that's
around,
great.
you know, doing what I want. Like, yeah, so I'm good, man. You know, but sometimes you have to know when to take time out. You know, cut your losses. You know, whatever. You know, sometimes you do need that. I mean, it's exhausting work, right? It's like you can't do it all day, every day. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy to have you. I remember when your case first came in to the the decisions committee, for the defense fund.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't think anyone voted against it. I think it was a pretty slam dunk.
Dude, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was a student in that. I think it was Jason then.
What's that?
I think I was using a pseudonym then because I was fighting my case. I would have been Jason.
Yeah.
That was Jason. And actually, I did an interview with I had a couple of friends that run a podcast called Rebel Steps. It's a great podcast for people looking to get kind of interested in an intro to anarchist ideas, abolitionist ideas. They do a lot of awesome stuff. They're based here in Brooklyn. I did an interview with them shortly after I was able to get around on crutches, and yeah, we used the same name. You know, I was like fighting my case still. It didn't, you know, I was like, I'll just go by Jason. So that kind of stuck. You know, the nickname the International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund gave me. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really pleased to have been on, man. It's been a real pleasure, you know, and thanks for everything you do.
Yeah, thanks for coming and talking with us. And it's really great to see directly when like our help or when our like or when the decisions when the International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund like pulls through, and like you get to see the results, and like you follow a story and you get to see them come out. It's really it's a net positive story, you know.
Totally.
So.
I mean, it's like, you know, it involves some setbacks, right? But I think we came through them. I mean, obviously, like, I'm the one that did the time, but I did it with so much support and so many people, like, very, very closely following behind me and asking me what I needed to get through it and being like, yo, we're here for you. We believe you. That has been like one of the most incredible and most humbling experiences of my life. It's something that, like, it's often hard for me to put into words because it's very emotionally overwhelming in a good way. And it's also just something that's like, dude, I mean, if you live through it, I think, do you know what I mean? I don't mean to sound like
No.
Or whatever, like, you know, you have to have received a certain amount of solidarity to know what I mean. But like, really, like on a sensory level, it's like, it's super fucking cool. And part of it is like, sure, you know, everyone wants to feel special. So like, you're the center of attention. And people are like, that's cool, right? That's a basic human need, whatever. But on another level, it's like, I know firsthand that will be there for people in the future. That, I mean, dude, hundreds of people came out of the fucking woodwork and just like were writing me letters, sending me books, donating money. Like, it's like, you know, spreading the word about my case, calling to get me released when there was a chance of it. You know, that has been like one of the coolest fucking experiences I never would have dreamed of having in my life.
I believe you were one of I believe you were one of the recipients. We did the J25 for July 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a 28-hour stream to get you guys raised up some money. We raised, I think it was $2,800 total between 11 people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was. So you owe me some sleep.
No. Yeah. All right. Well,
no, joking.
Well, we're in different zones, so I think I'm actually cutting into your sleep deficit a little more with this interview. It's like,
no, it's 10:30 in the morning now.
Okay.
I woke up for this one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, that's great. What is July 25th? Day of Solidarity with Anti-Fascist Prisoners?
Yeah, it started with Jock Paul Freeman.
Jock, who's out now, who's in Bulgaria.
Who's
It's
out now?
in
He's
Bulgaria, which is like great.
he's out now, and he
Like-
just 2 weeks ago got the right to leave.
Oh shit!
Yeah, he won his appeal, but wait, what day is today? But today he's getting married, or yesterday he's getting married. So
married.
yeah, so he's staying in Bulgaria anyways.
That's awesome. Oh, dude, that's great. I mean, he had a much harder case. He did much harder time. You know, I'm just like
he's got some stories, but
dude, I'm sure. Like that's crazy, man.
But every one of us, or every one of like us as in our side that gets out is a great a reason to celebrate.
Yeah, dude. Well, a lot of folks have come home lately. Jeremy Hammond came home.
Yeah.
Jalil Mutakeen came home. One of the folks from the NATO 3 or NATO 4, his name is Chase, came home recently.
I'll unfold the story.
Yeah, no, I just heard about it. So I've started to do like low risk activist work now that I'm out and I have this record specifically related to a protest. So I've been doing stuff with ABC, Anarchist Black Cross, which does a lot of political prisoner letter writing events. They're super cool. ABC.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. NYC ABC is probably the biggest chapter, but they have chapters all over the world. They're fucking dope. I got letters from like people in Paris with ABC Paris. They're fucking cool. So I've been doing like stuff like that. It's pretty like low risk, and you know, in these like Zoom meetings or whatever, people talk about the news about who's been released. So that's how I heard about that. But yeah, a lot of people have been coming home lately, and it's actually great. You know, I think it just happened to work out that way. I think that there's also a lot of concern for the future, especially with all the arrests that happened in the Floyd, you know, rebellion. It's like, and a lot of people are going to go down for really stupid shit the way I did. You know, they're going to go down on really inflated charges with really inflated sentences. And we got to be prepared to support them. And I'm down to do that because there's no risk involved. Like, and I've been there. So, you know, it's the least I can do, really, you know.
Yeah, absolutely support bail funds, people.
Community bail funds are huge. Yes.
Yeah, here I can get you a nice long list of bail funds. Right here, I can get you. Here, I can get you a whole treasure trove. What we got: guide to organizing your workplace, mutual aid organizations, tenant union organizations, abolish police, dual power map, and the bail funds.
Dual power.
All that.
Do people know that term, dual power? I don't know.
A good bit of people in the audience know that. Yeah, if you're not aware,
yeah,
or if you want to, you know,
dude, you had something. It sounded like you had something like ready to go. Please hit me.
Well, it's just to be the most quick and dirty of it is just why do we believe that the current institutions of the state are the naturally the right ones? Why did they get to say it? Because they got the guns. So when we start putting in our own institutions and our own ways of feeding ourselves, clothing ourselves, protecting ourselves, we challenge their right to authority. And if we continue to do that and we become bigger or more useful, the other ones cease to be the right, you know, the correct way.
And it dovetails nicely with this sort of discussion we were having earlier about you know, working for reforms or not, right? Like you can do that. You can also build power on your own in your own way, directly with other folks involved in whatever project you're working on, whatever community you consider yourself to be a part of. Again, we're seeing that in real time right now. It's fucking cool, man. The community bail funds and the mutual aid networks and like you know, rent strikes, all the stuff that's really been going on since COVID. And stuff's really cool and really encouraging. And a lot of it is direct action. And it's completely outside kind of the purview of the state, which is great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's so much going on right now, and it's so scary right now with a lot of things, but man, I haven't had this much hope in a long time. There's so many proofs in coming in through the pudding.
Yeah.
That's a way you can say that, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's fine. I love that expression, so it's cool. Yeah. Nice though. And it's like, you know, I don't want to dude, I don't want to gloss over like how many people have died unnecessarily due to COVID, right? Like that's that really sucks. And it's in many other ways, it's like totally devastating people's livelihoods, whatever. But you know, would not be anywhere near where we are without that. So it's like, yeah, we should put a stop to all the unnecessary suffering and death as soon as possible. But also, since it has arrived, like it's here, right? And these opportunities have presented themselves. What can we do to further take advantage of them? I think it's, it is actually, it's really encouraging, because things have been kind of bleak in the news for a while now. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people, when they were like, oh, a global, like, deadly pandemic, like, oh, okay, it's like, I mean, just a few years ago, it was like fascism, like, okay, so I
They
think
were really ramping things up there real quick in the news
Yeah.
cycle. Or
it's like shit's crazy, man. So I think,
next locus.
yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's nice to have some hope for a change. Just gotta watch out for that recuperation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, if anyone out there it takes anything away, it's protect your people, your possible future inmates from being inmates if you can, and look out for your current inmates, and
Yeah.
send solidarity whenever you can,
Yeah, man.
and then have hope.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
have hope.
All right, David. Unless you got anything else to say, I think we're about wrapped up here.
No, it's been a real pleasure talking with you, man. Anytime,
Yeah.
hit me up. I'm around. Anytime.
Yeah, and remember, everyone out there, go to the International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund. They spelled the cool European way with a C, DEFENCE. It's well, I'll tell you before we go, it's a rotating, not rotating, but it's a constantly used bail fund or a defense fund for different anti-fascist activists or people who are hurt or injured or need bail funds, lawyer fees, such for doing anti-fascist work. It's constantly used. We constantly replenish it, so it always needs to be topped up. If you donate $20 at least or more, you get to be on the decisions committee, the crew, which means you'll get an email whenever something happens, and you can actually get involved and help them make decisions. If someone meets the criteria for help, or if you know of someone who needs the help, you can submit it to them, things like that. So yes, definitely go help them out. Thank you so much, David, for coming and hanging out.
Great, man. It's been really great to see you. The International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund is really great. Really works. Seriously, check it out. Donate. Yeah, man. I wish you the best of luck. Hope to hear from you soon. Thanks everybody who tuned in. Solidarity.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Solidarity.
All right, man.